So Joe, tell us a little bit about your book. We can see it behind you, and here's a copy right here, Getting to Us. I know all about it. I loved it. I've got it full of Post-it notes. But in a few words, tell us about your book, Getting to Us.
Sure. My book is, I want to say basically, how do you persuade the world that doesn't want to be persuaded? And the answer to that is to give them something that they can believe in, create a vision that is so big that people will find their own nobility in it and desire to be part of your cause. And if you can make it big enough for everyone to find a place, people will do what you need them to do, because then they reward themselves. And that is what my book is about.
And I love this book. You and I have been talking about this book for a while now, and a bit back, I don't exactly remember when, but you and I had a conversation about some ways that this book could do even more for you. So walk us through what that was like for you. You had this book and you wanted it to take you to a specific place, do certain things for your business. Where were you at that point?
Well, it's funny. They say that when you write a book and you're an author, you become the authority. Well, when I first sat with you, I wrote a book. I felt like an authority because I wrote the book, but I realized that the world didn't know I was an authority. Mm-hmm. And working with you, I was able to let people know, what I do, and who I am. And I have been able to get my message much more out in the world and have an opportunity for people to share with me. And that's exciting. And that's kind of where it was. It was, okay, here's the book. Just because I wrote it sitting on a shelf doesn't mean anyone knows about it. And you helped me make sure people knew what I wrote.
Yeah, and that's an amazing transformation. You're right. Having the book is the first step to authority, but then getting it into people's hands, having people read it, having people know about you as an authority is a huge next step to truly becoming the authority.
Exactly. Sitting at my desk with a pile of books behind me didn't make me an authority to the world. I was an authority to me. And that's really what, to me, I wrote the book because I wanted to share my views with the world, because I spent, and if I can say, I spent 30 years as a criminal trial lawyer and as a lawyer. And whether I was negotiating or I was in a courtroom, my goal was always to get everyone on the same page. And if I could get everyone on the same page, I could get done what I needed to do. If it was a jury, I could get the acquittal or I could get the conviction. If it was a business meeting, I could get everybody to do what we needed to do to get it done. And I spent 30 years figuring out how to do that. And by the way, I always say I don't subscribe to a win-win solution. I was a persuasion that I like to say brought Aristotle into modern times. And gave people motivation to do something different. And that's what this is. This is my embodiment of everything I've done.
That's amazing. And before we jump into what you and I put together and how we were able to get you out into the marketplace
I deal with people who wake up every morning knowing that when they go to bed at night, they have to keep a ball moving forward. They're not the people moving the ball, but they have to keep it moving. So I jokingly say sometimes I'm a coach's coach because I want my people to be coaches in and of themselves. So that's
really powerful.
I want people to embrace whatever the project is. And an example I love looking at is Apple, because Apple is a vertical goal of being the best they can possibly be in one singular market. And if you look at who they hire, look at their website and the type of people they're after, they are looking for people who buy into their vision, because then the ball moves forward. And a lot of companies don't seem to understand that, because they hire people, they put them in jobs, and some of those people move into management. And just because you were good on the floor doesn't mean you're good in a corner office. And they get slowed down and they need to be inspired. they need to inspire their people. And if the company can come up with something that is big enough that everyone can subscribe to it, then it moves like Amazon. I mean, I jokingly say, I want a big vision. Bezos, when I first heard ads for Amazon years ago, it was that he was going to put a warehouse on the moon because nowhere else was big enough. And this was in their beginning days, but he knew his vision was that big. And now here we sit, and over the last couple of months, people survive because of Amazon, because the vision was that big.
Absolutely. And I think that's really powerful for the people who are listening, that, we're really starting with a vision and working into creating the team who are on board with that vision, who can do that. And those are the people that you're trying to meet to help them to do that. So one of the things that I talk about a lot as I'm speaking around the world about how to write a successful expert book, how to get it out into the world, is that your book revenue is take your spouse out to dinner money, right? It's great revenue. It's certainly good revenue, but it's not the main dish. It's not what we're really trying to do. As expert entrepreneurs, what we're trying to do is grow our businesses. And the real meat and potatoes is in finding new clients, being able to help and serve others to get their businesses to move forward. Now, of course, in order to do that, you need to be in front of your ideal client. And how can I get more visibility? So let's start with getting your message out there. Some of the work that we did to get your brand into the marketplace. Walk us through what that's looked like for you up until this point.
Well, I want to get to the point, or I want to say the point where we started working with a publicist. But even before that, when you and I spoke, there was a lot of insight between us in terms of giving me a level of confidence to go out and not just speak and sell the book, but to take pride in the book. Mm-hmm. And basically, I want to say my book was my vision. And I jokingly have told a couple of people that you actually kicked me in the butt to make my vision bigger so that it would get out there, because I wrote down what I wanted to do, but I don't know that I ever knew what to do with it. So along the way, your advice and commentary got me into a great headspace. And then, was it 4 or 5 months ago, when I decided I wanted to get my vision out, because in my mind, the time was right. Then we started working with a publicist, and that's when things started to move.
Yeah. And, I've got a number of publicists that I work with, that I partner my authors with to really do the very best work, because it's really part of that bigger vision of you as an author, you as an expert, you as an entrepreneur, to get your name and your brand out into the marketplace. So, what was it like working with one of our publicists? For people who've never worked with one, what kinds of things did you do? Where were you able to get some exposure out into the world?
Sure. When I first started working with Cher, I didn't know which way it was going to go. And at first, it was proofread the press release and make sure it said the right stuff. And if I can start there, what that press release basically was my book talks about the power of a unifying vision. And in my mind, this pandemic was just beginning when we hired the publicist. But in my mind, it was going to be the biggest unifying vision that the world had ever seen, because I was convinced we would all unite to beat COVID. So I wanted to get out there and use it as an example. That's all I knew. And then all of a sudden one day I get an email that says interested ? And I responded to an interview. Then another day I get another one. And all of a sudden I started getting these links to start being interviewed. Then I got a couple podcasts, a couple of Facebook Lives, radio talk shows. And it started growing over a period of time, but the process was one that I wasn't ready for, but it got me ready in the process because things started off moving. And then by the time I got my first live radio interview, it was a 15-minute interview, but I was ready for it because all of the questions had been already asked of me by other interviewers. And oddly enough, that 15-minute interview ended up turning into a 1-hour radio show a month later because the host wanted me back just to talk more. And I was ready for an hour of being grilled by an interviewer. So not knowing what to expect was a little scary, but I knew I needed to get out. And you and I agreed I had to. But the process got me ready as it went along. And I know you reminded me, and Cher reminded me a number of times, it was a process and things would grow in the media as well as growing with me. And I learned to walk through I want to say the process in a very comfortable, one step at a time manner. And that's what worked well for me.
That's great. And you were able to get some great regional exposure and some amazing national exposure. Tell us about your experience with the balance of all of those types of presence.
Yeah. It's interesting because initially I got a couple of interview questions from some, I want to call them small writers on the internet, that were looking to do fluff pieces or things to enhance their own site. I got a lead for a podcast. It was a regional podcast, just to focus on a small area. And I don't know, but I was telling somebody the other day, all of a sudden one day I woke up and I was doing a morning drive in Northern California on the radio from my basement going, I don't know how I got here.
Yeah.
But it was really cool. And then all of a sudden, getting an article in Entrepreneur Magazine, Forbes, I can't remember some of the other ones. I've lost track. But a lot of content has been generated over the past couple of months, which, by the way, is not just beneficial because it got me out there, but it also got me thinking on collateral issues and parallel issues on my message that opened it up so that I'm more ready to do a lot of bigger things.
Absolutely. And I mean, let's not skim over the big ones too quickly, because not only were you featured in Entrepreneur, but you have become a regular contributor.
I have, yes,
to
right.
Entrepreneur.
Yeah, I my article, I'm very proud of the fact that my article was the #1 read article on their site for about 5 days until something knocked me out of first place. And it was actually a discussion about the history of Aunt Jemima. So that was a very timely topic that was happening. So I wasn't upset about being knocked out by something that timely. But after that article, they did make me a contributor. So at least I would never have gotten there without your help.
And I mean, that's amazing. I don't know off the top of my head what the reach of Entrepreneur Magazine is, but it's large, right? I mean, that's a huge accomplishment for anyone. So, I mean, congratulations on that, because that's wow.
I don't know. I will tell you this. I don't know their reach. I just know that when I kept looking at the number of comments, and good and bad, by the way, on their site, and I saw the number of people that liked it or the number of people that viewed it, it was more than I ever fathomed. So, could never, you can't do that on your own. Not at all.
That's amazing. And so, we've been working on the PR piece, but in addition to all of that, we have been working on an audio book for you. And walk us through your thinking on how you decided that now was a really good time for an audio book.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I guess I want to say what happened was I realized that I was out there and I had gained more confidence in my message and my book. And I thought to myself, my book's selling. I should jump into the Audible market. So I actually, being a regular Audible listener, I reached out to a couple of the narrators that I liked and I talked to them about pricing and what it would take. And I thought, all right, good. So I have this. And then all of a sudden, a couple people said to me, you should record your own. And then I called you, and basically you were the tiebreaker and said, record your own. And once I committed to that, I knew I was going to do it. And I want to say, when I brought you back in on that and I said, all right, I'm ready to go to the next phase, I got a breath of fresh air because I didn't have to worry about the details. Your team, I want to say, basically is going to be I'm going to be doing the reading, and they're going to be doing everything else, so that all I have to do is sound pretty. And I'm okay with that. I've got my microphone. I'm ready. I'm going to start recording probably Monday. But I've got everything set up for it. And I'm ready to go, which truthfully, again, had I not called you, I would still be sitting here and I would tell you the target date was August. And then in August, I would tell you it was September. And I would put it off because I didn't really know how to do it. So bottom line is, you got me a master's degree in publicity, and now I'm going to get a master's degree in recording an Audible book. So that's how I look at it.
That's wonderful. Oh, thank you for that compliment, Joe. I really appreciate it. I'm
true that.
excited to be celebrating all of your great accomplishments. And what made you decide to work with me on these various projects? I mean, there are lots of options out there for speakers, for entrepreneurs, for authors. Why did you choose me over some of the other options that are out there?
Sure. I am a stubborn person. I don't listen to people well. I'm bullheaded. So what happens is I don't do well just finding someone. I had an opportunity, and you'll remember I had an opportunity about a year and a half ago to hear you speak. And right before I heard you speak, I knew you were going to. I had given you a copy of my book. And then you spoke. After listening to you speak for an hour, I said, okay, I get her. And then you and I spoke again, and we talked about my book, and I looked and went, okay, you get me. And it was one of those moments where I said, we understand each other, and I knew it would be a good fit. Also, too, because I knew I would listen to you because I respected you for the things you said. And I don't tend to listen to people I don't respect. And that's a problem. I'm stubborn, mule-headed that way. So I think it was a matter of when I realized the message that I heard you talk about, how you talked about getting to the next level. I basically, in my heart, knew you were who I was going to work with. And I remember when we first talked about it, it was, no, this is not the right time. Hang in there. And we did, and we continued to chat on and off. And then the right time did appear. And that's when we moved.